Tonight, you don't have to chase peace. You don't have to solve the whole year in your head. If your mind has been racing, replaying the past, predicting the future, listen closely. You are already here. And here is the only place your body can rest, the only place your heart can heal. Zen doesn't promise a perfect life. It offers something quieter and more real. A way back to this breath, this moment, this soft beginning. So let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. And for a little while, let this night hold you. Already here, the practice of coming back to the present. The phrase already here can sound almost too simple, like something you'd see on a poster. But Zen treats it as a medicine, especially at night. Because when you're lying in bed and your mind won't stop talking, the real problem usually isn't your life. It's that you've left your life. Your attention is moved into a mental movie. Old conversations, imagined disasters, future plans, silent regrets. Meanwhile, your body is still here, trying to rest. Zen begins with one honest recognition. The mind wandered, and now it returns. That return is not small. It is the doorway to peace. In Buddhist teaching, suffering grows when we cling, when we hold tightly to what changes. A short, widely known line points to this truth. All conditioned things are impermanent. When we forget impermanence, we demand certainty from a world that can't offer it. We demand that the past be different and that the future be guaranteed. But Zen doesn't fight reality. It trains the heart to meet reality without collapsing. That training starts with the present moment, not because the present is always pleasant, but because the present is always real. So what does already here mean tonight? It means you stop negotiating with time. You stop trying to redo yesterday and control tomorrow. You come back to what can actually hold you. The weight of your body on the bed, the rise and fall of breath, the quiet fact that you are alive. You might notice tension right away, tight shoulders, clenched jaw, a shallow breath. Zen doesn't shame this. It simply says, begin where you are. The breath you have right now is enough to begin. Try it gently. Inhale without forcing. Exhale a little longer than the inhale, as if you are setting down a bag you've been carrying all day. Let your hands soften. Let your tongue rest. These aren't relaxation tricks. They are a form of mindfulness. You are telling the nervous system that it can stop bracing for impact. When the body stops bracing, the mind becomes less desperate to control. At night, the mind often argues, "But I need to think about this." Zen answers with kindness. You can think tomorrow. Buddhism doesn't deny responsibility. It denies unnecessary suffering. There is a difference between wise planning and endless rumination. Planning has an end point. Rumination keeps you awake and still doesn't solve anything. If a practical step is needed, you can write it down one sentence, one reminder, then return to rest. Zen is very practical that way. It respects action, and it respects letting go after action is done. Zen stories often use ordinary moments to reveal a deep truth. Here is one. A student once asked a teacher, "How do I find peace?" The teacher didn't give a long speech. He simply asked, "Where are you standing?" The student looked confused. "Here," he said. The teacher replied, "Then why are you searching somewhere else?" The student wanted a technique, a guarantee, a special answer. But the teacher was pointing to the core. Peace begins the moment you stop leaving the present. Already here also means you stop making war with your thoughts. Many people try to force the mind to be silent, then feel like they failed when thoughts return. Zen has a gentler approach. Notice, label, return. When a thought appears, you can quietly name it, thinking. When a memory appears, remembering. When a worry appears, worrying. Then you return to the breath. This is not suppression. It's training. Each return is a small awakening. Over time, your mind learns that it doesn't need to chase every thought like it's an emergency. Buddhist wisdom speaks clearly about this. The mind can create suffering even when nothing dangerous is happening. Not because the mind is evil, but because it's trying to protect you sometimes in outdated ways. Worry can be the mind's attempt to prevent pain. Control can be the mind's attempt to avoid surprise. But Zen asks, what is the cost of these strategies tonight? If the cost is your sleep, your peace, your ability to heal, then the strategy is not helping anymore. You don't have to hate your mind for doing it. You can thank it and choose something wiser. This is where compassion becomes essential. A tired, anxious mind often speaks harshly. "What's wrong with me?" Or, "Why can't I just relax?" Buddhism offers a different voice, gentleness. Loving kindness practice metta is not sentimental. It is protective. You can repeat softly, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I rest." When you speak to yourself this way, you stop adding a second layer of suffering. You stop shooting the second arrow of self-criticism after the first arrow of discomfort. That alone can change the whole night. Already here is also a reminder about identity. At night, the mind likes to tell stories. I'm behind. I'm failing. I'm not enough. Zen invites you to see these as thoughts, not as truth, not as destiny. You are not the story. You are the awareness that notices the story. The Buddha's teachings point again and again to this freedom. Experiences arise. Experiences pass. When you stop making them a permanent me, the heart becomes lighter. Let's make it even more concrete. If you are listening in bed, try this simple grounding. Feel the contact of your body with the bed. Feel the breath at the nose or chest. Let the exhale lengthen slightly. Then ask very gently, what is happening right now, in this moment? Usually, the answer is surprisingly simple. Breathing, lying down, tired, safe enough. Zen loves this simplicity because it pulls you out of mental drama and back into reality. Reality may still include pain or uncertainty, but it is far easier to live with than the mind's endless projections. There's another Zen story that fits New Year's nights especially well. A traveler asked a monk, "How can I stop worrying about tomorrow?" The monk held up a lantern and said, "When you walk in the dark, do you need light for the whole road or only for the next step?" The traveler said, "The next step." The monk replied, "Then why do you demand more from life than you demand from your own feet?" The teaching is not, don't plan. The teaching is, don't try to live the entire future tonight. Step-size living is peace. So as you settle, let your practice be humble. One breath, one return, one softening. That's it. You don't need a dramatic spiritual moment. Zen is not fireworks. Zen is a candle, steady, quiet, enough to see what's real. And what's real is that you are already here. You are already breathing. You are already capable of returning. If you want a closing line to hold as you drift toward sleep, use something simple and true. Inhale, I arrive. Exhale, I release. Say it slowly a few times. Then let the words fade. Let the breath continue on its own. Let the body become heavy. Let the mind be background noise if it needs to be. You don't have to win against your thoughts. You only have to stop following them. And in that quiet stopping, rest becomes possible not because everything is perfect, but because you finally came home to the only place peace can live, this moment. The Cup of Tea, a Zen story about stopping the inner rush. There is a reason Zen teachers talk about ordinary things, brooms, stones, water, and tea. At night, when the mind keeps racing, complicated advice can feel like another task. Zen offers something simpler. Return to what is right in front of you. A cup of tea becomes a lesson, not because tea is magical, but because it's real. It is warm. It is present. It does not ask you to perform. And in the presence of something real, the mind begins to loosen its grip on the imaginary. Zen has a well-known story that appears in different forms across traditions. A student came to a teacher, restless and frustrated. "My mind won't stop," the student said. "I've tried everything. I want peace." The teacher listened quietly, then said, "Make tea." The student was disappointed. "That's it?" The teacher nodded. So the student boiled water, placed leaves in a pot, and poured slowly. The teacher said nothing. The student kept expecting a lecture, but the teacher only watched. After a few minutes, something shifted. The student's shoulders dropped. The breath became deeper. The mind, still noisy, was no longer in charge. The teacher finally spoke. "When you make tea, you cannot live in yesterday and tomorrow at the same time. Your hands bring you back." This story isn't about tea. It's about attention. The Buddha taught that the mind becomes what it repeatedly attends to. When attention keeps feeding worry and regret become your inner home. But when attention returns to a simple, grounded activity, the mind relearns safety. Zen uses tea because it naturally invites the senses. Heat, scent, weight, steam, taste, Sensory experience anchors you in the present. And the present, however imperfect, has one great advantage over your anxious imagination. It is actually happening. At night, the inner rush often pretends to be necessary. It says, if I don't think this through now, something bad will happen. Zen answers by returning you to reality. If you are lying in bed, nothing urgent is required in this moment. Your body is asking for rest. Your mind may resist rest because rest feels like losing control. But Buddhism teaches that control is not the same as safety. True safety begins when you stop fighting your own nervous system. So how do you make tea when you're in bed? You do it in the simplest way. You choose one small, ordinary anchor. It could be your breath, the sensation of the blanket, the feeling of your hand resting on your chest, the sound of a fan. The idea is not to distract yourself. It's to come home to something real. Zen is not escape. Zen is intimacy with what is here. The Buddha's teaching on mindfulness is often described as remembering. Remembering what? Remembering to return. The mind forgets and runs, then remembers and returns. This is the whole practice. When you stop demanding a perfectly quiet mind, you can actually rest. You no longer treat each thought as a failure. You treat each thought as a bell that invites you back. The inner rush is also often driven by self-judgment. The mind thinks, I shouldn't be like this. Or other people can sleep. Why can't I? Buddhism sees this as the second arrow, the extra suffering we add on top of discomfort. Insomnia or restlessness may be the first arrow. Self-criticism is the second arrow. Zen helps you remove the second arrow by replacing harshness with a calm, neutral attitude. Restlessness is here. That's it. No drama, no shame, just clarity. There's another Zen story that sharpens this lesson. A student told a master, I'm always in a hurry. Even when I sit still, my mind runs. The master took him to a stream and said, watch the water. The student watched. The master asked, is the water hurrying? The student said, no, it's just flowing. The master replied, then why are you hurrying? Flow is enough. The student didn't fully understand at first, but later that night, when the mind rushed, he remembered the stream. He didn't try to stop the water. He simply watched it, and the watching itself became peace. Zen is full of these images because they train the mind through feeling, not argument. When you're tired, you don't need philosophy. You need a way to soften. And softening is exactly what tea teaches. When you hold a warm cup, your body naturally relaxes. Warmth signals safety. The parasympathetic nervous system, the part that allows rest, responds to warmth and slow breathing. Zen teachers understood this long before modern science had names for it. They used what worked. Now, Buddhism also warns us about grasping even at calm. Sometimes we try to achieve relaxation with force. We try to calm down so we can finally be okay. That striving becomes another kind of rush. Zen invites a gentler approach. Allow. Allow the mind to be imperfect. Allow the body to be tired. Allow the moment to be what it is. When you allow, you stop feeding resistance. And resistance is what keeps the mind hot. Here is a simple practice you can do, like making tea in bed. First, feel 3 points of contact. Maybe your head on the pillow, your back on the mattress, your feet under the blanket. Second, take a slow inhale, then a longer exhale, as if you're cooling steam. Third, name one sensation: warmth, weight, softness, breath. Then repeat. That's it. No complicated visualization. No pressure. This is Zen. Small, ordinary, effective. If your mind keeps returning to worries, you can treat each worry like a bubble rising in hot water. It appears, it rises, it pops. You don't need to pop it with your finger. It will pop on its own. If you stop stirring, stirring is what the mind does when it argues, analyzes, and rehearses. Zen stops the stirring by returning attention to the body. The Buddha taught that the present moment is the proper field of practice. Not because the present is always easy, but because the present is where causes can be changed. You cannot change yesterday. You cannot live tomorrow tonight. But you can change one cause right now. The cause of tension. You can release the jaw. You can soften the shoulders. You can lengthen the exhale. These are small causes that produce big effects over time. This is how Buddhist practice becomes real, not theoretical. There is also compassion in the tea story. The teacher didn't shame the student. He didn't say, "Stop thinking." He gave the student something kind and doable. Many of us need that kind of teaching, on New Year's nights and ordinary nights alike. If your mind is tired, give it fewer battles. Give it warmth. Give it simplicity. Give it permission to be human. Zen is sometimes described as nothing special. That phrase can feel confusing, but it means stop searching for a special moment that will finally fix you. Peace is built from ordinary returns. A cup of tea, a slow breath, a softened shoulder, a thought noticed and released. These are not flashy, but they are real. And what is real is what heals. So tonight, whether you actually have tea or you simply imagine its warmth, let it symbolize one decision. I will stop rushing my own life. I will stop racing my mind against time. I will rest in what is here. The future can wait. The past can rest. For now, the body is breathing. For now, you are already here. If you want one line to carry into sleep, let it be simple and sensory, like Zen itself. Warmth is here. Breath is here. I am here. Say it softly. Then let your attention settle into the feeling of being held. The sound of the bell. How to stop fighting your thoughts. At night, the mind often becomes a courtroom. Thoughts arrive like witnesses, one after another, each carrying evidence about what went wrong, what might go wrong, what you should have done, what you must do next. And you, exhausted, become the judge, trying to make a final decision that will somehow settle everything. But Zen offers a different image. The mind is not a courtroom. It is a sky. Thoughts are clouds. You don't need to put clouds on trial. You only need to notice that they pass. Zen teachers sometimes use a bell to teach this. The bell rings, the sound appears, then it fades. You cannot hold it, and you do not need to chase it. In the same way, thoughts appear and fade. The suffering begins when we chase them, grip them, argue with them, or treat them like commands. Buddhism teaches that clinging is a cause of suffering. Many people think clinging is only about relationships or possessions, but clinging to thoughts is one of the most common forms. You hold a thought so tightly that it becomes your mood, your body tension, your insomnia. Zen practice teaches the art of releasing thought, the way the ear releases sound. Here is a small Zen story. A student told a teacher, "My mind won't stop. I can't meditate." The teacher struck a bell and asked, "Do you hear it?" The student said, "Yes." The teacher waited until the sound faded, then asked, "Where did it go?" The student said, "It disappeared." The teacher nodded. "Did you push it away?" The student said, "No." "Did you chase it?" "No." "Then you already know how to meditate. Let thoughts be like the sound." The student was surprised. He had believed meditation meant forcing silence. The teacher was showing something gentler and truer. Meditation is learning not to cling. The Buddha taught impermanence. Everything that arises passes. When you really understand this, you stop panicking when the mind is noisy. Noise is not permanent. Thoughts are not permanent. Emotions are not permanent. Even this night will pass. But Zen doesn't ask you to believe impermanence. It asks you to experience it directly. You experience it by watching one thought come and go without grabbing it. That is the bell lesson. If you can hear a sound fade, you can watch a thought fade. So why do thoughts feel so sticky at night? Often because the nervous system is tired. A tired body has fewer resources to regulate emotion. Also, nighttime removes distractions, so the mind finally has space to surface what it avoided during the day. This can feel scary, like opening a closet and seeing everything you stuffed inside. Buddhism doesn't call that bad. It calls it an opportunity. What rises can be met with awareness. What is met with awareness begins to soften. But many people respond to thoughts with force. They try to push them away, which creates resistance. And resistance creates more energy. Imagine trying to push water with your hand. It splashes back. Thoughts do the same. Zen offers a different response. Allow, label, return. Allow the thought to be there. Label it gently, thinking, planning, remembering, judging. Then return to the breath or the body. This is the practice. It is simple, but not always easy. Yet it becomes easier when you stop treating it like a battle. In Buddhist teaching, mindfulness is not cold observation. It is caring presence. You can watch your mind the way a loving adult watches a tired child. Firm, gentle, not panicked. When the mind runs, you do not yell at it, you guide it back. This is why Zen is so healing. It trains your inner relationship. Many people suffer not only because of thoughts, but because they fear their own thoughts. Zen removes that fear by showing thoughts are just events. They are not your identity. They are not always true. They are not always helpful. They are like a bell sound arising and fading. A practical way to use the bell teaching at bedtime is to give your thoughts a permission slip to pass. Instead of saying, "Stop," you say, "Okay," thinking. Then you let it go. The moment you let it go, you come back to a physical anchor. The easiest anchor at night is the exhale. Lengthen it slightly. Feel your body settle a little. You are teaching the nervous system. We are not in danger. We do not need to solve everything now. Sometimes thoughts are fueled by guilt. The mind replays mistakes and says, "You should have known better." Buddhism meets guilt with two truths: responsibility and compassion. If you made a mistake, you can learn. If you hurt someone, you can repair. But punishing yourself in bed is not repair. It is suffering. The Buddha taught a path of transformation. See clearly, make wise changes, and release self-hatred. Zen is not about being good enough to deserve peace. Zen is about returning to peace so you can live wisely. At other times, thoughts are fueled by fear. The mind predicts disaster as a way to prepare, but preparation turns into torment when it never ends. Zen brings you back to step-size living. You don't need to live your entire future tonight. You only need to take one breath. The mind will say, "But what if?" Zen answers, "Return." Not as denial, but as wisdom. You can act tomorrow. You can plan tomorrow. Tonight is for rest. Zen also teaches that the body and mind are not separate. When the mind is restless, the body is usually tense. So practice releasing the body as a way of releasing thought. Unclench the jaw. Drop the shoulders. Soften the belly. Let the hands open. Every time you soften the body, you weaken the grip of thought. The body becomes a teacher. It shows the mind how to let go. Here is another Zen story that brings this home. A student complained, "My thoughts are too loud." The teacher replied, "Then listen." The student said, "I don't want to listen. I want them to stop." The teacher struck a bell and said, "Did you hear that?" The student said, "Yes." "Did you try to stop it?" "No." "Did you hate it?" "No." "Then treat your thoughts the same way." The student asked, "But the bell is pleasant." The teacher smiled. "And yet, it still fades." The lesson is subtle. The goal is not to like every thought. The goal is to stop clinging to them. Even unpleasant thoughts fade when you stop feeding them. This practice becomes even softer when you add loving kindness. If a painful thought arises, "I'm not enough, I'm behind," I messed up. Meet it like a bell sound. Hear it. Then respond with kindness. May I be gentle with myself. This is metta. The Buddha taught that loving kindness protects the mind. It doesn't change your life overnight, but it changes your inner climate. And that climate affects everything, especially sleep. If you want, you can do a short bell meditation without an actual bell. Imagine each thought as a sound. It appears, you hear it, then you let it fade. Don't chase it. Don't fight it. If another thought arrives, you do the same. Your job is not to stop the mind's music. Your job is to stop dancing to every song. Over time, this practice creates freedom. Freedom doesn't mean you never think. Freedom means thoughts no longer rule you. Freedom means you can rest even when the mind is imperfect. And that is deeply Zen. You are already here, even with noise. You are already worthy of rest, even with unfinished things. So tonight, let your thoughts ring like a bell. Let them fade. Let your breath be the steady ground beneath them. And when you notice you've been carried away, don't judge yourself. Simply return. In Zen, that return is awakening. In Buddhism, that return is the path. If you need one simple phrase to guide you, try this. Hear it. Let it go. Come back. Say it gently with the breath. Then let the night do what it's meant to do. Hold you, soften you, and carry you into sleep. The mountain and the mist. Seeing thoughts without becoming them. Some nights, thoughts don't feel like simple passing clouds. They feel like a storm with a name, a memory that carries heat, a fear that grips the chest, a regret that won't let go. On those nights, the instruction, just watch your thoughts, can feel impossible, like asking someone to watch a fire without feeling its warmth. Zen understands this. It doesn't deny the intensity of the mind. Instead, it offers another way to relate. You don't have to become the storm. You can be the mountain that the storm moves around. Zen often uses images because images bypass argument and speak directly to the heart. Imagine a mountain wrapped in mist. The mist moves. It thickens and thins. It hides the mountain's shape for a while, then clears. But the mountain remains. Thoughts and emotions are like that mist. They can be thick and convincing. They can make you feel lost. Yet beneath them, there is something steady, awareness itself. Buddhism points to this steadiness again and again, not as a mystical escape, but as a practical refuge. When you remember the mountain, the mist loses some of its power to define you. The Buddha taught impermanence. What arises, passes. But Zen adds a second insight. What arises is not always you. A thought can arise without being your identity. A feeling can arise without being your destiny. This is one of the most liberating skills for sleep. Learning to recognize the difference between experience and self. Many people suffer because they fuse them together. I feel anxious turns into, I am anxious turns into I am broken. Zen breaks the chain early by saying, anxiety is here. The mountain remains. Let's make this concrete. If you're listening at night and you feel overwhelmed, start with the simplest step. Locate yourself in the body. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow. Feel your back supported. Feel your hands resting. Let your exhale lengthen, even slightly. This is how you become the mountain in a practical way. You return to the physical facts of the present. The mind may still be misty. That's okay. You're not trying to erase mist. You're remembering the mountain. Zen stories often illustrate this with surprising simplicity. A student once asked, "How do I stop being controlled by my thoughts?" The teacher pointed to a foggy valley and said, "When fog covers the valley, do you go down there to fight it?" The student said, "No, you wait." The teacher replied, "Yes. You wait with awareness." The student wanted a method, a weapon, a fast solution. The teacher offered patience. Not passive patience, awake patience, the kind that sees clearly and doesn't panic. Fog clears, mist moves. When you stop running into the fog with your fists, it passes more quickly. Why do we run into the fog? Because the mind believes it must solve discomfort immediately. But solving is not always possible at night. Sometimes the only wise action is to rest. Buddhism calls this skillful means choosing the right response for the moment. If your mind insists on solving, you can offer it a compassionate compromise. I will remember this tomorrow. Write one line if needed, then return to the breath. This gives the mind a sense of safety without giving it control. Zen also teaches that clear seeing is more important than control. You do not need to control every thought. You need to see thoughts as thoughts. When a strong thought arises, I'm behind, I messed up, I'll never be okay. Try adding a gentle prefix. I'm having the thought that. This small phrase creates distance. It turns a statement into an event. It brings you back to the mountain. You are not denying the thought. You are seeing it accurately. The Buddha's teachings on non-attachment support this. Non-attachment does not mean you don't care. It means you stop gripping. You can care about your future without gripping it tonight. You can care about your mistakes without using them as a weapon against yourself. You can care about people without clinging to their approval. Gripping makes the mind tight. Non-attachment makes the mind spacious, and spaciousness is where sleep lives. There's a Zen story about a monk who is troubled by fears at night. He told his teacher, "When I lie down, my mind fills with shadows." The teacher took him outside and said, "Look at the moon." The monk looked. Clouds drifted across the moon, and the light dimmed, then returned. The teacher asked, "Did the moon break when the clouds came?" The monk said, "No." The teacher replied, "Then why do you believe your mind breaks when clouds come?" The monk began to understand. Thoughts and fears are clouds. Awareness is the moon. The moon remains. This practice becomes even more powerful when you stop expecting the mist to leave quickly. Many people get frustrated because they meditate for a few minutes and the mind is still noisy. Zen says, don't rush the weather. Instead, practice being steady inside it. The moment you stop demanding instant calm, you relax. And that relaxation often allows calm to arise naturally. It's a paradox. Forcing peace pushes it away. Allowing the moment invites peace closer. Now, sometimes the mist is not just thoughts, it's emotion, grief, loneliness, anger, heartbreak. Zen does not treat emotions as enemies. It treats them as visitors. A visitor can be intense, but it doesn't have to become the owner of the house. At night, you can meet emotion with a simple 3-step kindness. Recognize, sadness is here. Allow, it can be here. And soothe, may I be gentle. This is a form of Buddhist compassion. It doesn't erase pain. It removes the extra violence of resistance. There is also a teaching in Buddhism often expressed as, what you resist persists. Resistance feeds emotion with attention and fear. Allowing lets it move. So tonight, if an emotion rises, don't push it away. Don't dramatize it. Simply breathe with it. Let the exhale lengthen. Let the body soften. You are being the mountain. Steady, present, not running. To support this, you can use a short metta phrase. The Buddha taught loving kindness as a protection for the mind. Try this at bedtime. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be at ease. Repeat it slowly, not to force a mood, but to create a gentle inner environment. When the inner environment becomes kind, the mist loses its sharpness. Zen also emphasizes direct experience. If the mind is spinning in stories, bring it back to sensation. Feel the air at the nostrils. Feel the warmth of the blanket. Listen to a quiet sound in the room. Sensation is the antidote to mental fog, because sensation happens now. Stories happen in imagination. At night, imagination often turns dark. Sensation remains simple. Simple is soothing. Here is a brief practice you can do right now, especially if you feel overwhelmed. Notice one point of contact, head on pillow. Notice one sound, fan, distant silence. Notice one breath, inhale and exhale. Then repeat. This is a mountain practice. It trains the mind to stay with what is steady while mist moves around it. As you drift toward sleep, remember, the goal is not to become a perfect meditator. The goal is to stop being dragged. Thoughts may still come, emotions may still visit, but you can be the mountain. You can be the moon. You can be the awareness that remains while the weather changes. This is what Zen means by already here. The present is not an idea. It is the ground beneath your body right now. And that ground is stable enough to hold you. If you want one final line to carry into the night, let it be gentle and strong. The mist can move. I remain. Say it softly once or twice. Then let the words go. The mountain doesn't need to repeat itself. It simply rests. And when you rest like that, steady beneath the mist, sleep becomes less like a struggle and more like a natural return. The two arrows, ending the extra suffering that keeps you awake. Some nights, what hurts isn't only what happened, it's what your mind keeps doing to what happened. A mistake becomes a life story. A painful memory becomes a verdict. A hard season becomes proof that you're failing. Zen and Buddhism do not deny pain, but they are very clear about something most people never learn. We often suffer twice, and the second suffering is optional. The Buddha taught this through an image known as the two arrows. The first arrow is unavoidable. The original pain, loss, disappointment, conflict, sickness, loneliness, fear. Being human means you will be touched by the first arrow. The second arrow is the one we add, the mental attack, the shame, the panic, the endless replay. The second arrow sounds like, I can't believe this happened. I should have known. What's wrong with me? This will never get better. I'm ruined. That second arrow doesn't fix the first. It only makes it bleed longer. At night, the second arrow is often what keeps you awake. Zen practice is the art of removing the second arrow, not by pretending the first arrow didn't hurt, but by meeting pain with clarity instead of cruelty. This is one of the most compassionate teachings in Buddhism, especially for people who carry anxiety, regret, or self-judgment into sleep. It tells you, you're not broken because you hurt. You're hurting because you're human, and you can stop adding extra harm. Let's make this very real. Imagine something difficult that happened this year, even something small. Notice what your mind says about it. Maybe it says, I'm so stupid. I always mess things up. No one would understand. I wasted my chance. Those statements aren't the first arrow. They are the second. The first arrow might be, that was painful. That was disappointing. That was scary. That was hard. The first arrow is honest. The second arrow is violent. Zen teaches you to tell the difference. At night, the second arrow often feels like thinking, but it's really self-punishment. Many people believe self-punishment is responsibility, like if they suffer enough, they'll prevent future mistakes. But Buddhism says clearly, suffering is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom learns without cruelty. Wisdom makes amends without self-hatred. Wisdom changes behavior without destroying the heart. Zen offers a story. A student told a teacher, I can't stop blaming myself. The teacher asked him to bring a stick. When the student returned, the teacher tapped the student's arm once lightly. That's pain, the teacher said. Then he began tapping again and again in the same spot. The student pulled away. Stop, he said. The teacher replied, the first tap is life. The repeated taps are what you do to yourself. The student understood. The mind keeps tapping the wound. Zen training is learning to stop tapping. So how do you stop? You start by recognizing the second arrow in the moment. You don't argue with it. You name it. Self-judgment, catastrophizing, replaying, shame. Then you return to the body. Feel the breath. Lengthen the exhale. Soften the shoulders. The body is where the second arrow lands. And the body is also where the second arrow can be released. When the body relaxes, the mind often loses momentum. Then, you practice a new response. Compassion with clarity. Compassion says, "This is painful." Clarity says, "I will not add cruelty." A simple replacement phrase can help. When the second arrow says, "I'm a failure," try, "I'm learning." When it says, "I ruined everything," try, "This was hard, and I can take a wise step next." When it says, "I should be over this," try, "Healing takes time." These aren't fake positive thoughts. They are truthful and kind. Buddhism does not require you to lie to yourself. It asks you to stop harming yourself. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence supports this deeply. Feelings change, situations change, even heavy seasons change. When the second arrow says, "This will last forever," Buddhism replies, "This is impermanent," not as a slogan, but as a reality. The mind's panic often comes from turning a moment into eternity. Zen returns you to the truth. It's a moment, a hard moment, yes, but still a moment. There's also a Zen teaching about suchness, the way things are. Pain, when met as suchness, becomes cleaner. It hurts, but it's not dirty with shame. The moment you add shame, pain becomes heavier. So tonight, practice meeting discomfort as it is. Sadness is here. Fear is here. Regret is here. No extra story, no attack, no verdict. Just reality. Reality is difficult sometimes, but it is lighter than judgment. Many people struggle here because they confuse self-compassion with letting themselves off the hook. Buddhism doesn't do that. It supports accountability, but it refuses cruelty. If you made a mistake, you can repair. If you avoided something, you can face it. But you don't need to whip yourself in bed. The Dharma is about liberation from suffering, not the glorification of suffering. Removing the second arrow is not weakness. It is wisdom. Zen also teaches that everything in the mind is a condition. When you are tired, conditions are worse. When you are hungry, stressed, isolated, or overwhelmed, the mind tends toward harshness. So the practice includes caring for conditions. This is why sleep matters. A rested mind is kinder. A rested mind is more capable of wise action. So if you want to act wisely tomorrow, you must stop stabbing yourself tonight. Let's bring in loving kindness, because metta is a direct antidote to the second arrow. You can place a hand on your heart and repeat slowly, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from inner harm." Notice the phrase, inner harm. That's what the second arrow is, inner harm. And you have the right to stop it. If you want a short practice, try this 2 arrows check. First, name the first arrow. This is painful. Second, notice the second arrow. I'm attacking myself. Third, choose release. I don't add more. Then return to breath. This practice is powerful because it's honest. It doesn't bypass pain. It changes your relationship to pain. Zen stories also remind us that the heart can hold pain without being destroyed by it. A teacher once said to a student, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." The first arrow is the wave. The second arrow is you yelling at the ocean. Surfing is mindfulness, feeling the wave, breathing through it, not adding extra suffering. You don't need to be perfect at surfing. You only need to stop yelling at the ocean. On New Year's nights, the second arrow often shows up as regret about the past year. The mind becomes a critic. I didn't do enough. I wasted time. I should be further. Zen responds with a quieter truth. You survived. You learned something. You made it here. That matters. And you can enter the new year with one wise intention: to reduce suffering by reducing self-attack. When you remove the second arrow, you create space for real healing. Real healing might involve boundaries, changes, forgiveness, support, therapy, community, practice. But none of that begins well from a place of inner violence. It begins from a place of steadiness and kindness. Buddhism calls this skillful means, choosing the response that leads to freedom. So tonight, if you feel pain, let pain be the first arrow. Hold it with breath. Hold it with softness. Don't make it a verdict. Don't make it an identity. Let it be a human experience, moving through a human heart. Then choose, deliberately, to set down the second arrow, not once forever, but again and again. Each time you notice self-attack and stop, you are practicing liberation. If you want one line to carry into sleep, make it simple. Pain is here. I won't add more. Say it gently with the exhale. Then let the body sink. Let the mind quiet naturally. The first arrow may still exist, but without the second, the night becomes lighter. And in that lighter night, sleep becomes possible. Beginner's mind. The gentle power of not needing to be perfect. One of the most exhausting beliefs we carry into the night is the belief that we must be done. Done improving. Done healing. Done making mistakes. Done feeling uncertain. On New Year's nights and ordinary nights, this belief can keep the mind tense because the mind is trying to arrive at a final version of you. Zen offers a different gift, beginner's mind, a mind that doesn't need to be finished in order to be worthy of peace. Beginner's mind sounds simple, but it is profound. It means you meet life without the heavy armor of, I already know, I should have it together, I must be impressive, or I can't mess up. Beginner's mind is curious, it is open, it is willing to learn, and because it is open, it is less afraid. When you stop demanding perfection, the nervous system stops bracing. And when the nervous system stops bracing, sleep becomes possible. In Buddhism, a lot of suffering comes from attachment to identity. We cling to being seen as competent, strong, successful, good, spiritual, productive. Then every mistake threatens our image. The mind reacts with shame and anxiety. Zen gently unhooks you from this by inviting you to be a beginner again. A beginner doesn't panic over imperfection because imperfection is expected. A beginner doesn't need to prove worth through flawless performance. A beginner only needs to show up. There is a Zen story that many people return to when they feel stuck. A student asked a teacher, "How can I awaken?" The teacher replied, "Start again." The student said, "But I've already tried so many times." The teacher answered, "Good, you have practice starting again." The student didn't like that at first. He wanted a shortcut. But the teacher was revealing something essential. The path is made of returns. Beginning again is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of sincerity. At night, perfectionism often shows up as rumination. You replay conversations, thinking of better responses. You replay decisions, wondering if you chose wrong. You replay your year, measuring yourself against an imaginary timeline. Zen calls this striving mind. Striving mind doesn't rest because it believes rest must be earned. Beginner's mind rests because it knows rest is part of learning. If you never rest, you cannot learn well. Even the body learns this. Muscles grow during recovery, not during strain. The mind is the same. The Buddha taught the middle way, balanced effort. Not lazy, not harsh. Perfectionism is harsh. It treats your humanity like a flaw. Beginner's mind is balanced. It says, "I will practice, and I will be kind." Kindness is not softness in the negative sense. It is the strength to keep going without breaking yourself. Zen practice is long. Life is long. You need a mind that can last. A powerful way to bring beginner's mind into bedtime is to stop trying to solve yourself. Instead, approach the mind with curiosity. If thoughts are racing, instead of saying, "This is bad," say, "Oh, the mind is active tonight." If worry is present, instead of saying, "I shouldn't worry," say, "Worry is here." This is beginner's mind in real time. Non-judging awareness. The moment you stop judging, the mind softens. Judgment is tension. Curiosity is space. Zen tells another story. A professor visited a Zen master to learn about Zen. The professor spoke at length, explaining all he knew, asking questions, offering opinions. The master served tea. He poured until the cup overflowed. The professor shouted, "Stop! It's overflowing!" The master replied, "Your mind is like this cup. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty it?" This story is often used to teach humility, but it also teaches something for sleep. If your mind is overflowing, you don't need more thinking. You need emptying, not by force, but by releasing. At night, emptying can be as simple as returning to the breath. Inhale and feel the air arrive. Exhale and feel the air leave. Then drop one more layer. Drop the need to do it right. Many people meditate with tension, trying to meditate correctly. Beginner's mind says, "I'll just breathe. That's enough." Zen is ordinary like that. It doesn't require a special performance. Beginner's mind also changes how you relate to mistakes. Instead of "I failed," you say, "I learned." Instead of "I'm behind," you say, "I'm on the path." Instead of "I should have done more," you say, "I did what I could with the mind I had then." This isn't denial. It's honest compassion. Buddhism teaches that conditions shape behavior. When you understand conditions, you stop hating yourself. And when you stop hating yourself, you can change more effectively. The Buddha emphasized intention. If your intention is wholesome, less harm, more awareness, more kindness, then even imperfect actions can support awakening. Perfectionism, by contrast, often comes from fear and pride. Fear of being judged, pride in an image. Zen gently removes both by returning you to sincerity. Sincerity doesn't need applause. It doesn't need perfection. It needs presence. Now, how does this help sleep? Because sleep is not something you can force. The moment you try to force sleep, you create tension. Beginner's mind takes pressure off. It says, if sleep comes, it comes. If it doesn't, I will still rest my body. This is deeply Zen. When the mind stops fighting, the body often drifts naturally. And even if you are awake, you are no longer suffering in the same way. Rest can happen without sleep, and often rest leads to sleep. Try this gentle bedtime vow. Tonight, I will not demand perfection from my mind. Then, if thoughts come, treat them like beginner's practice. Oh, a thought. Label it softly. Thinking. Return to breath. If you get carried away, return again. Every return is success. Zen measures success differently than the world. The world measures outcomes. Zen measures returning. Zen also teaches that you don't need to get rid of all thoughts to be peaceful. You only need to stop obeying them. The mind can be noisy while you remain steady. This is beginner's mind. You don't expect perfect silence. You practice gentle steadiness. If you want to integrate Buddhist scripture-like guidance in a simple, respectful way, you can remember the spirit of the teaching. A well-trained mind brings happiness. Training doesn't mean violence. It means repetition with kindness, just as you would teach a child to read patiently, gently. Again and again, you teach your mind to return. Beginner's mind is the patience that makes training possible. Tonight, if you feel like you're not where you should be, beginner's mind offers a blessing. You don't have to be. You can be exactly where you are and still be worthy of peace. You can be learning. You can be healing. You can be unfinished. Zen says, the present moment doesn't reject you for being unfinished. The present moment simply receives you. And when you allow yourself to be received, you stop trying to earn rest. If you want one closing phrase to carry into sleep, let it be simple and kind. I'm allowed to be a beginner. Say it once or twice on the exhale. Then let go of the words. Let the body sink. Let the night do its quiet work. Beginner's mind isn't a concept to think about. It's a permission you give yourself right now to be human without punishment. And when you give yourself that permission, you may notice something surprising. The heart softens, the mind loosens. And sleep, which never responds well to force, begins to arrive naturally like a friend who comes when you stop chasing. The guest house, welcoming emotions without letting them take over. Some nights, the problem isn't just thoughts, it's feelings. Feelings that arrive without warning. Sadness that spreads through the chest. Anxiety that tightens the throat. Loneliness that makes the room feel colder. Anger that burns quietly under the ribs. When emotions show up at night, many people try to push them away, distract themselves, or think positive. But Zen offers a different path. Welcome what arrives without letting it run the house. In Zen, emotions are often treated as visitors. They come, they stay for a while, then they leave. The suffering begins when you either lock the door and panic, "I can't feel this," or when you hand the visitor the keys and let it take over. "This is who I am now." Buddhism offers a middle way, recognition and compassion, without identification. You can feel fear without becoming fear. You can feel sadness without becoming broken. You can feel anger without becoming harmful. This is a deep kind of freedom. There's a famous teaching often shared in Zen circles called the guest house, meaning the heart is like a home where different guests arrive. Joy arrives, sorrow arrives, restlessness arrives, relief arrives. None of these guests are permanent. The skill is learning how to host. A wise host doesn't scream at a guest for showing up, but a wise host also doesn't let the guest smash the furniture. A wise host meets what arrives with calm presence. The Buddha's teaching supports this with the truth of impermanence. Emotions arise due to conditions and pass when conditions change. When we forget this, we panic. We think, "This feeling will last forever." Zen answers, "This is weather. Weather changes, but it changes more easily when you stop fighting it." Fighting is like standing in the rain shouting at the sky. It doesn't stop the rain, it only exhausts you. So tonight, if an emotion arrives, begin with the simplest thing. Name it gently. Sadness is here. Fear is here. Loneliness is here. Anger is here. This naming is not cold or clinical. It is a form of respect. You are acknowledging what is real. In Buddhism, seeing clearly is compassion. When you name an emotion, you stop drowning in it. You step onto the shore of awareness. You become the host. Now, notice what the emotion does in the body. Sadness might feel heavy in the chest or behind the eyes. Anxiety might feel like tightness in the throat or a fluttering stomach. Anger might feel hot and tense. Instead of analyzing the story behind the emotion, simply stay with sensation. Sensation is here. Story pulls you into the past and future. Zen prefers what is immediate because it is less sticky. You can breathe with sensation. You can soften around it. The body understands this language. Try this. Inhale and silently say, I allow. Exhale and silently say, I soften. You're not trying to delete the emotion. You're creating space around it. Space is what prevents takeover. An emotion with space can move. An emotion without space becomes a cage. Zen stories show this skill with a kind of calm humor. A student told a teacher, "My anger keeps visiting me." The teacher asked, "Do you invite it?" The student said, "No, it just comes." The teacher replied, "Then stop offering it tea and a bed." The student laughed, then asked what that meant. The teacher said, "Don't feed it with story. Don't rehearse arguments. Don't build a future around it. Meet it, breathe, and let it pass." This is the guest house practice. You acknowledge the visitor, but you do not feed it into a long stay. Buddhism also teaches loving kindness as a direct way to hold emotions. When the heart is in pain, it often turns harsh. Harshness makes pain sharper. Loving kindness softens pain. You can place a hand over your heart and repeat, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself." This is metta. It is not pretending you feel good. It is protecting the mind from inner violence. The Buddha taught that a mind suffused with loving kindness sleeps more peacefully because it is less filled with fear and hostility. Sometimes emotions arrive at night because we didn't give them space during the day. We stayed busy. We stayed strong. We stayed distracted. Then the night arrives and the heart finally speaks. Zen doesn't see this as inconvenient. It sees it as honest. If grief arrives, it may be asking to be felt. If loneliness arrives, it may be asking for gentleness. If anxiety arrives, it may be asking for safety. You don't need to fix everything tonight, but you can listen. Here is a simple guest house practice you can do in bed. Recognize. This feeling is here. This. Done. 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 Allow. It can be here. Soothe. May I be gentle. Return. To breath. To body. To the feeling of being supported. This practice is powerful because it is non-violent. It treats your inner world with dignity. Now, what about emotions like anger? Many people fear anger because they think it will make them bad. But Buddhism doesn't say, never feel anger. It says, don't be controlled by it. Anger often points to hurt, boundary violation, or unmet needs. At night, you can meet anger with a wise question. What is this protecting? Often, anger protects a tender part of you. When you see that tenderness, anger softens. Then you can rest. Zen also teaches, don't know mind, a humble openness. When an emotion arrives, you don't have to solve it. You don't have to label it perfectly. You don't have to create an entire identity around it. You can simply be present. This is often enough for sleep, because the nervous system relaxes when it feels met. An unmet emotion shouts louder. A met emotion often quiets. There is a Zen story about a child who cried at night. The child's caretaker didn't lecture the child. She simply sat near, put a gentle hand on the child's back, and breathed slowly. The child calmed down. Zen says your emotions are like that child. They don't always need a solution. They need presence. When you offer presence to your own feelings, you become your own caretaker. That is a spiritual maturity many people never learn. On New Year's nights, emotions can also carry reflection. Grief for what didn't happen. Gratitude for what survived. Fear of what's coming. Relief that the year is ending. Let all of it be allowed. Buddhism teaches that the heart is wide enough to hold mixed feelings. You don't have to force one mood. You can simply be human in a quiet way. If you want a bedtime phrase to hold emotions without being swallowed, try this. Welcome, visitor. I will breathe with you. Say it gently. Then return to the exhale. Feel the body soften. Remember, you are the host. The emotion is the guest. Guests come and go. Over time, this practice builds a new inner trust. You stop fearing your feelings. You stop treating emotion as danger. And when you stop fearing emotion, the mind becomes less vigilant. Less vigilance means deeper rest. This is how Zen supports sleep, not by guaranteeing calm, but by teaching you how to be with what arises without collapse. Tonight, let your heart be a guest house. Let feelings visit. Offer them awareness and kindness. Then, let them leave when they are ready. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to beg them to stay. You simply remain present, already here, steady enough to hold life as it is. Already here, already enough. Falling asleep with the refuge of the present. By the time night arrives, many people feel like they're carrying an invisible backpack filled with the day's weight. Not just tasks, but emotions. Not just emotions, but expectations. And underneath it all, a quiet fear. Am I doing life right? Zen offers a gentle answer that can change the whole night. You are already here, and that is already enough. Not enough in the sense that nothing ever needs to change, but enough in the sense that you don't have to earn the right to rest. Buddhism teaches that suffering often comes from thirst, tanha, the craving to become something else, to get somewhere else, to fix everything before we can relax. At night, this thirst shows up as mental striving, the mind planning, correcting, replaying, and trying to control. Zen sees that striving and asks you to stop feeding it, not by force, but by returning to the refuge of what is already present: breath, body, awareness. This is why the present moment is called a refuge. It is the only place where you are not split. The past divides you into regret. The future divides you into fear. The present brings you back into one whole being. There is a quiet dignity in arriving. Zen practice is often just that, arriving again and again. And each arrival is a kind of homecoming. When you come home to the present, you stop chasing a version of yourself who is finally okay. You stop postponing peace. You recognize peace is not a prize at the end of perfect living. Peace is the ground you can touch right now, even while life remains unfinished. Zen stories often point to this with a kind of warm directness. A student once asked, "When will I be enough?" The teacher held up a simple bowl and said, "When the bowl is empty, is it less of a bowl?" The student said no. The teacher asked, "When the bowl is full, is it more of a bowl?" The student said no. The teacher smiled. "Then why do you treat yourself differently?" The teaching isn't that effort doesn't matter. It's that worth is not measured by fullness. Your worth doesn't rise and fall with productivity, progress, or approval. If you can feel that truth in your body, sleep becomes easier because your mind is no longer trying to earn its right to rest. Buddhism also teaches the practice of contentment. Contentment is not giving up. It is recognizing what is sufficient in this moment. Zen contentment at bedtime might look like this. My breath is here. My body is supported. I am safe enough in this moment. Notice the phrase safe enough. Zen is not denial. It doesn't demand that life be perfect. It invites you to find what is stable enough to rest on. Most nights, there is at least one stable thing, the simple fact of breathing. If you are anxious, the mind may argue, "But what about tomorrow?" Zen answers, "Tomorrow will come." The present moment is not refusing tomorrow. It is simply refusing to live tomorrow tonight. This is a subtle but powerful difference. Anxiety is often the mind rehearsing a future it cannot control. Zen returns you to the one place where you can actually change something, the quality of your attention right now. So let's turn this into a practice you can feel. If you are lying down, begin by making your attention kind. The way you place attention matters. If you place attention harshly like a critic, the body tightens. If you place attention gently like a friend, the body softens. So place attention on the breath, like you would place a blanket on a sleeping child, slowly, carefully, without shock. Feel the inhale arrive. Feel the exhale leave. Let the exhale lengthen slightly. Then add one simple sentence, already here. Say it inwardly on the inhale. On the exhale, say, already enough. Repeat slowly. You are not trying to hypnotize yourself. You are training the mind away from striving and toward refuge. Zen also reminds us that the present moment is not just a time. It is a relationship. It is the relationship between awareness and what is happening. When you are already here, you are in relationship with the body, listening, caring, allowing. When you are lost in mental time travel, you abandon that relationship. The body then becomes tense because it feels unattended. Many people try to fix sleep with techniques while still abandoning the body. Zen fixes that by making the body the first home. Another way to deepen this is to practice allowing. Allowing is the opposite of forcing. Forcing says, I must sleep now. Allowing says, I will rest now. Forcing creates pressure. Pressure keeps you awake. Allowing creates space. Space invites sleep. So tonight, try to let go of the demand for sleep. Instead, commit to rest. Tell yourself, even if I'm awake, I will be kind to my body. This alone can reduce the fear that keeps insomnia alive. Buddhism also teaches that the mind can be trained through repetition, but repetition must be gentle. If you repeat a phrase like a drill sergeant, it creates tension. If you repeat it like a lullaby, it soothes. Zen is lullaby-like. So if you use already here, already enough, use it softly, with the breath, as if you are comforting the parts of you that are still striving. There is a Zen story about a traveler who came to a monastery late at night. He was exhausted and asked for a bed. The monk at the gate asked, "Do you have worries?" The traveler laughed bitterly. "Of course," he said. The monk replied, "Then leave them at the gate." The traveler looked confused. "How?" The monk said, "Name one worry, then place it down. Name another, place it down." The traveler protested, "They'll still be there in the morning." The monk smiled. "Yes, but you don't have to carry them in your arms while you sleep. That is Zen, not deleting the problems, but putting them down for the night. You can do the same. If a worry is loud, name it in one short phrase: money, health, family, work, future. Then imagine setting it on a shelf beside the bed. Not throwing it away, not denying it, just placing it down. Then return to breath. This gives the mind a sense of respect and containment. Containment is calming. The mind relaxes when it knows it can attend to things later. Now, if your mind keeps returning, that's normal. Returning is the practice. Each time you come back to breath, you are strengthening the muscle of presence. Zen never shames you for wandering. It simply teaches you to come back without drama. This is why Zen is so supportive for sleep. It removes the performance pressure. You don't have to win. You only have to return. Before you drift off, you might also practice a brief gratitude that is not forced. Something small and true. I am grateful for one breath. I am grateful for this bed. I am grateful I made it through today. Gratitude, when it is honest, softens the heart. A softened heart sleeps more easily than a guarded one. Finally, let go of even the practice. Stop trying to meditate well. Let the breath be natural. Let the body be heavy. Let thoughts be distant. The present moment doesn't require you to hold it. It holds you. If you want one last line as you fade into sleep, let it be simple. Nothing to prove, nowhere to go. Then let your attention rest in the feeling of being supported. You are already here. You are already enough to rest. And that is the quiet Zen wisdom that can carry you into deep sleep. The lantern at the door. Zen wisdom for anxiety that won't let you sleep. Even when your body is tired, anxiety can keep the mind standing guard, like a watchman at the door, refusing to sit down. At night, anxiety often feels louder because there are fewer distractions. The room is quiet, the world slows, and the mind starts scanning for threats. What if something goes wrong? What if I can't handle tomorrow? What if I never feel better? Zen understands this anxious vigilance. It doesn't shame it. It simply recognizes it as a habit of the mind, one that can be softened through practice. And it offers a gentle image, a lantern. A lantern doesn't light the whole future. It only lights what's near. In Buddhism, this is wisdom. Anxiety demands certainty about the entire road. Zen offers enough light for the next step, one breath, one moment, one simple act of returning. When you stop demanding total certainty, the nervous system starts to relax because the impossible job has been taken away. There is a Zen story about a traveler who came to a teacher late at night. The traveler said, "I'm afraid of the road ahead." The teacher handed him a small lantern and asked, "How far does this lantern shine?" The traveler said, "Only a little." The teacher replied, "That is all you need. Walk by this light." The traveler wanted a guarantee. The teacher offered a practice. Zen rarely gives guarantees because reality is impermanent. But Zen gives something better: steadiness. Anxiety often comes from living in the future. The mind creates images, predicts disasters, rehearses conversations, and tries to control outcomes that do not exist yet. The Buddha taught that suffering grows through clinging and aversion, clinging to safety, pushing away uncertainty. But uncertainty is built into life. So the path is not eliminating uncertainty. The path is learning to live with it without fear taking over. Tonight, if anxiety is present, begin in the body. This is always the Zen doorway. Notice where anxiety sits. Is it in the chest, the throat, the stomach, the jaw? Often it shows up as tightness and shallow breathing. Now, without forcing calm, make one small change. Lengthen the exhale, just a little. The exhale is your lantern. A longer exhale tells the nervous system, the emergency is not happening right now. Even if your mind is warning you, your body can learn to stop bracing. Then, name what is present. Anxiety is here. Not, "I am anxious," but anxiety is here. This shift matters. It separates you from the feeling. In Buddhism, this is a step toward non-identification. A feeling can be here without becoming who you are. Zen calls this making space. When there is space, you can respond with wisdom instead of reacting with panic. Now, listen carefully to what anxiety is trying to do. Usually, it is trying to protect you. It is the mind's attempt to prevent pain. That means anxiety is not your enemy. It is an overworked guardian. If you treat it like an enemy, you create inner war. If you treat it like a guardian, you can guide it. Tonight, try speaking to anxiety with gentle authority. "Thank you. I hear you. You can rest now. This is not childish. It is nervous system wisdom. The mind calms faster when it feels acknowledged. Zen practice also teaches you to stop feeding the anxious story. Anxiety grows when you follow what if down 1,000 staircases. So the practice is to notice what if and return to what is. What is? Right now. You are lying down. You are breathing. You are listening. The future is not here. The body is here. The breath is here. This is not denial. This is reality. Zen does not ask you to pretend tomorrow doesn't exist. It asks you not to live tomorrow in your nervous system tonight. A very practical method for anxious nights is to give the mind a container. If something truly needs attention, write it down 1 or 2 lines. Not a whole plan, just a note. Then tell the mind, this is held. Zen is compassionate like that. It doesn't ask the mind to drop everything into empty space. It gives a shelf. Once it's on the shelf, return to breath. The Buddha's teachings also include the practice of loving kindness, which is powerful for anxiety because anxiety often includes self-criticism. The mind says, I shouldn't be like this. But the heart needs gentleness, not punishment. You can repeat softly, may I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I be at ease. Let the phrases be slow, like waves. You are not forcing a mood. You are creating a safer inner environment. A safer inner environment reduces vigilance. Zen stories sometimes show that anxiety is like mist around a lamp. The lamp still shines, but the mist makes it look dimmer. Your awareness is the lamp. Anxiety is the mist. If you panic about the mist thickens. If you keep the lamp steady, breath, body, gentle attention, the mist slowly clears. The goal is not to chase the mist away. The goal is to stay steady enough that it can move on its own. Now, here is a simple lantern practice you can do in bed. Choose one anchor. The sensation of breath at the nose, or the rise and fall of the chest. On the inhale, silently say, here. On the exhale, silently say, now. If a worry appears, label it worrying and return to here, now. This is a direct Zen method, reducing the mind's universe to one small circle of light. When you stay inside that circle, anxiety has less fuel. Anxiety also often carries a hidden belief. If I relax, I'll be unprepared. Zen answers, preparation is important, but rest is part of preparation. A tired mind makes worse decisions. A rested mind sees more clearly. So, letting yourself rest is not irresponsibility, it is wisdom. This is the middle way. You don't ignore life, and you don't destroy yourself trying to control life. There is another Zen story. A student asked, how do I stop worrying? The teacher replied, can you control the wind? The student said, no. The teacher asked, then why do you demand control over what cannot be controlled? The student said, "Because I'm afraid." The teacher nodded and said, "Then practice courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is breathing, while fear visits." This is a beautiful definition for tonight. Courage is letting the breath continue even when the mind trembles. So if you're anxious right now, don't demand that anxiety vanish. Instead, practice courage in small ways. Soften the jaw, lengthen the exhale, return to here. Now, offer yourself loving kindness. The lantern does not fight the night. It simply shines. And as the night deepens, you may notice the anxious guard begins to sit down, not because you argued with it, but because you stopped feeding it. Not because you controlled the future, but because you returned to the present. Zen calls this peace. It is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is real. If you want one final phrase before sleep, let it be simple. I have enough light for this moment. Say it gently. Then let the breath be your lantern, and let the night carry you, one soft step at a time. The rope and the snake. How the mind creates fear in the dark. There are moments at night when fear feels completely real, even if nothing is happening. The room is quiet. The lights are off. And suddenly the mind produces a familiar feeling. Alertness, dread, a strange pressure in the chest. The body becomes watchful. The mind starts scanning. What is wrong? Zen recognizes this experience and offers a story that has traveled through Buddhist traditions for centuries: the rope and the snake. In the story, a person walks at dusk and sees something on the ground. In the dim light, it looks like a snake. Fear explodes instantly, heart pounding, breath shallow, muscles ready to run. But when a lantern is brought closer, the snake is revealed to be only a rope. Nothing changed on the ground. What changed was the light. The fear was real in the body, but the danger was not real in the world. Zen uses this story to point at a gentle truth. The mind can misread reality, especially in low light, especially when we are tired. At night, your mind is like that dusk. When you are exhausted, your capacity to interpret clearly is reduced. The nervous system becomes sensitive. Memories rise. Old fears return. The mind takes a neutral sensation like a flutter in the stomach, a noise outside, a thought about tomorrow, and it labels it snake. Then the body reacts as if danger is present. This is why anxiety can feel so powerful at bedtime. It's not only thinking, it's a full-body alarm, triggered by interpretation. Buddhism does not shame you for this. The Buddha taught that the mind is conditioned. It reacts based on habit, past experiences, and learned patterns. Fear is often a habit, but habits can be changed. Zen changes habit, not by arguing with fear, but by bringing light, mindfulness, close to the experience. The rope and snake story is mindfulness in a single image. Bring the lantern nearer. So, what is the lantern tonight? It is clear awareness. It is looking closely at what you're feeling instead of running with the story. When fear arises, pause and investigate gently. Ask, what is the actual sensation in my body? Maybe it is tightness in the chest. Maybe it is heat in the face. Maybe it is a racing heart. Notice the sensation like you would notice the shape of a rope carefully, without panic. Then ask, what story is my mind attaching to this sensation? The story might be, something bad is about to happen, or I can't handle tomorrow, or I'm not safe. This is the snake story. Seeing the story as a story is already bringing light. Zen practice does not require you to prove the story false before you can relax. It only asks you to stop treating the story as a command. Fear can be present, and you can still breathe. Fear can be present, and you can still soften the shoulders. Fear can be present, and you can still return to already here. This is the beginning of freedom. You stop obeying the alarm. Here is a practical step-by-step way to bring the lantern closer while keeping the tone gentle. First, name what is present. Fear is here. Second, located in the body. Tight chest, fast heart, tense jaw. Third, breathe with it. Inhale normally, exhale longer. Fourth, light the lantern with a question. Is this a rope or a snake? That last question is not sarcasm. It is a Zen reminder to check reality. Many fears at night are rope fears, sensations interpreted through fatigue. When you check, the nervous system starts to calm. The Buddha also taught that perception can be distorted by ignorance, not ignorance as insult, but ignorance as not seeing clearly. The rope is not a snake. But in low light, perception mistakes one for the other. Mindfulness is the light that corrects perception. This is why Zen can feel so practical. It is not arguing with your fear. It is improving the lighting. Sometimes the rope is truly a rope, meaning the fear is based on something real, like a real responsibility or a real pain. But even then, the snake part is usually the catastrophe the mind builds on top. The real responsibility might be, I have a lot to do. The snake story becomes, I'll fail, and everything will collapse. The real pain might be, I'm lonely. The snake story becomes, I'll always be alone. Zen separates rope from snake. It helps you meet the real situation without the added terror. A small Zen story expands this. A student came to a teacher and said, I'm afraid all the time. The teacher asked, afraid of what? The student listed many things. The teacher said, bring me one fear, only one. The student couldn't. His fears were tangled. The teacher smiled. You are afraid of your own mind. Untangle it with attention. That's the rope and snake practice. Untangle. At bedtime, one of the most effective ways to untangle is to reduce stimulation and return to the senses. Notice the temperature of the room. Notice the weight of the blanket. Notice the sound of your breathing. These are ropes, simple, real. When you anchor in real sensation, the mind has less room to invent snakes. This is why Zen teachers emphasize ordinary awareness. The rope and snake story also teaches compassion. If you've ever felt fear in the dark, you know how real it is. Your heart pounds, your muscles tighten. You can't just think your way out. So be gentle with yourself. When the body reacts, treat the body like a scared child, not with criticism, but with soothing. You can place a hand on your chest and say, "It's okay. We're safe enough right now." Then breathe slowly. In Buddhism, this is loving kindness applied to fear. The Buddha taught that loving kindness can protect the mind, especially at night. You can repeat, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I rest." Let the phrase be your lantern too. It reminds the nervous system of safety. It interrupts the fear spiral, and it keeps the heart soft. If the mind keeps returning to a fear, don't fight it. Bring the lantern closer again. Name, locate, breathe, check. This repetition is training. Over time, the mind learns. I can feel fear without losing myself. That is profound. It turns nighttime from a battlefield into a practice space. There's another helpful Zen image. When you see a rope as a snake, you jump. When you see it as a rope, you can step over it. Mindfulness doesn't erase life's challenges. It changes your relationship to them. Some challenges remain ropes real, but you can step over them calmly instead of running in panic. If you want a short bedtime ritual based on this teaching, try this. On an inhale, say, "Lantern on." On an exhale, say, "Seeing clearly." When fear arises, ask, "Rope or snake?" Then return to sensation. Breath, blanket, bed. This is a simple loop. It gives the mind a job that leads to peace, not panic. As you settle, remember, you do not need to eliminate all fear to sleep. You only need to stop feeding the mind's misreading. The rope and snake story is not about being fearless. It is about being awake. Awake enough to bring light. Awake enough to check. Awake enough to soften. And that awakening, quiet, gentle, ordinary, is what Zen calls wisdom. So tonight, if fear appears, don't panic about it. Just bring the lantern closer. Look again. Breathe. Soften. And let the snake dissolve back into rope. You are already here. And here, in the clear light of awareness, your body can finally begin to rest. Zen practice does not require you to prove the story false before you can relax. It only asks you to stop treating the story as a command. Fear can be present, and you can still breathe. Fear can be present, and you can still soften the shoulders. Fear can be present, and you can still return to already here. This is the beginning of freedom. You stop obeying the alarm. Here is a practical step-by-step way to bring the lantern closer while keeping the tone gentle. First, name what is present. Fear is here. Second, locate it in the body. Tight chest, fast heart, tense jaw. Third, breathe with it. Inhale normally, exhale longer. Fourth, light the lantern with a question. Is this a rope or a snake? That last question is not sarcasm. It is a Zen reminder to check reality. Many fears at night are rope fears, sensations interpreted through fatigue. When you check, the nervous system starts to calm. The Buddha also taught that perception can be distorted by ignorance, not ignorance as insult, but ignorance as not seeing clearly. The rope is not a snake. But in low light, perception mistakes one for the other. Mindfulness is the light that corrects perception. This is why Zen can feel so practical. It is not arguing with your fear. It is improving the lighting. Sometimes the rope is truly a rope, meaning the fear is based on something real, like a real responsibility or a real pain. But even then, the snake part is usually the catastrophe the mind builds on top. The real responsibility might be, I have a lot to do. The snake story becomes, I'll fail, and everything will collapse. The real pain might be, I'm lonely. The snake story becomes, I'll always be alone. Zen separates rope from snake. It helps you meet the real situation without the added terror. A small Zen story expands this. A student came to a teacher and said, I'm afraid all the time. The teacher asked, afraid of what? The student listed many things. The teacher said, bring me one, fear only one. The student couldn't. His fears were tangled. The teacher smiled. You are afraid of your own mind. Untangle it with attention. That's the rope and snake practice. Untangle. At bedtime, one of the most effective ways to untangle is to reduce stimulation and return to the senses. Notice the temperature of the room. Notice the weight of the blanket. Notice the sound of your breathing. These are ropes, simple, real. When you anchor in real sensation, the mind has less room to invent snakes. This is why Zen teachers emphasize ordinary awareness. The rope and snake story also teaches compassion. If you've ever felt fear in the dark, you know how real it is. Your heart pounds, your muscles tighten. You can't just think your way out. So be gentle with yourself. When the body reacts, treat the body like a scared child, not with criticism, but with soothing. You can place a hand on your chest and say, it's okay, we're safe enough right now. Then breathe slowly. In Buddhism, this is loving kindness applied to fear. The Buddha taught that loving kindness can protect the mind, especially at night. You can repeat, may I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I rest. Let the phrase be your lantern too. It reminds the nervous system of safety. It interrupts the fear spiral, and it keeps the heart soft. If the mind keeps returning to a fear, don't fight it. Bring the lantern closer again. Name, locate, breathe, check. This repetition is training. Over time, the mind learns. I can feel fear without losing myself. That is profound. It turns nighttime from a battlefield into a practice space. There's another helpful Zen image. When you see a rope as a snake, you jump. When you see it as a rope, you can step over it. Mindfulness doesn't erase life's challenges. It changes your relationship to them. Some challenges remain ropes real, but you can step over them calmly instead of running in panic. If you want a short bedtime ritual based on this teaching, try this. On an inhale, say, lantern on. On an exhale, say, seeing clearly. When fear arises, ask, rope or snake? Then return to sensation, breath, blanket, bed. This is a simple loop. It gives the mind a job that leads to peace, not panic. As you settle, remember, you do not need to eliminate all fear to sleep. You only need to stop feeding the mind's misreading. The rope and snake story is not about being fearless. It is about being awake. Awake enough to bring light. Awake enough to check. Awake enough to soften. And that awakening, quiet, gentle, ordinary, is what Zen calls wisdom. So tonight, if fear appears, don't panic about it. Just bring the lantern closer. Look again. Breathe. Soften. And let the snake dissolve back into rope. You are already here. And here, in the clear light of awareness, your body can finally begin to rest. The empty boat, letting go of taking everything personally. Some nights, the mind doesn't spiral because of fear. It spirals because of hurt, a comment someone made, a message left unread, a look that felt cold, a memory of being misunderstood. When the world gets quiet, the heart replays these moments and asks, why did they do that to me? It's a deeply human question. But Zen offers a teaching that can soften this pain without making you numb. The empty boat. The story is simple. A man is rowing across a lake at dusk. Another boat bumps into his boat. Instantly, irritation rises. Watch where you're going. He turns to shout at the other person, then realizes the other boat is empty. No one is inside. Suddenly, his anger dissolves. The same bump happened. The same impact. But the story changed. Without someone to blame, the mind relaxes. Zen uses this story to reveal a powerful truth. Much of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from what we assume about what happens, especially the assumption that it was personal. At night, the mind often creates someone in the boat. It assigns intention, meaning, and motive to what may have been careless, unconscious, or unrelated. They ignored me because I'm not important. They criticized me because they don't respect me. They forgot because they don't care. Sometimes that interpretation is accurate, but often it's not. And even when someone did hurt you, taking it personally can become a second wound, one that keeps reopening. Buddhism teaches that people act from conditions, their own fears, habits, confusion, pain, and attachments. This does not excuse harm, but it helps you stop carrying it as proof that you are unworthy. Zen invites you to ask, was there truly a person steering that boat toward me? Or did two lives simply collide in a messy human way? When you ask this, you bring mindfulness into relationship wounds. You stop feeding the mind's most exhausting habit, personalizing everything. This teaching matters for sleep because personalizing creates looping thoughts. The mind replays a scene and tries to fix it through imagination. It argues, defends, rehearses, and fantasizes about what you should have said. This can feel like problem solving, but it rarely helps. Instead, it keeps the nervous system activated. Zen doesn't tell you to pretend it didn't hurt. It tells you to stop adding fuel through interpretation. So how do you practice empty boat at bedtime? First, name the moment that is bothering you briefly, without diving into a long story. Second, notice what you believe it means about you. I'm not valued. I'm disrespected. I'm invisible. Third, ask, is that the only possible meaning? This question is the lantern. It opens space. Space allows relief. Now, this is not spiritual bypassing. If a relationship truly involves harm or disrespect, you may need boundaries. Zen doesn't deny that. But it invites a cleaner mind as you approach the situation. You respond from clarity, not from rumination. Rumination makes you reactive. Clarity makes you skillful. Buddhism calls this right effort, energy directed toward liberation, not toward endless inner arguments. The empty boat teaching also helps with shame. Many people interpret others' behavior as a verdict on their worth, but Buddhism teaches that self is not a fixed object that can be measured by someone's mood. The self is a flow of conditions too. Your worth is not something another person can take away with a careless moment. Zen does not inflate you into pride. It simply releases you from the prison of needing constant confirmation. There's a Zen story that echoes this. A student told a master, "Someone insulted me, and I can't sleep." The master asked, "Where is the insult now?" The student said, "In my mind." The master replied, "Then who is keeping it alive?" The student paused. He realized the other person spoke, but he kept repeating it. Zen was not blaming him, it was empowering him. You cannot control what people say, but you can decide whether to replay it all night. Empty boat practice is exactly this decision. You stop rowing in circles around someone else's behavior. You come back to the present. You choose rest. One reason we personalize is because we crave certainty in relationships. We want to know where we stand. But relationships are imperfect. People are inconsistent. They speak from their own storms. Buddhism teaches compassion for that inconsistency. Not naive compassion, but wise compassion. Wise compassion understands. Sometimes people bump into you because they're not paying attention. Sometimes they are carrying their own pain. Sometimes they are confused. Not every bump is about you. If you want to go deeper, Zen asks you to examine the feeling under the personalization. Often it's a longing. The longing to be seen, respected, loved. This longing is not wrong. It is human. The Buddha's teachings do not shame the human heart. They simply warn us about clinging. If your peace depends on being perfectly understood, you will suffer because life cannot guarantee that. The path is learning to give yourself a stable kindness that does not rise and fall with others' responses. This is where metta becomes powerful. If you feel hurt, place a hand over your heart and repeat, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from taking this as a verdict on my worth." You can also extend a simple wish to the other person if you're able. May you be free from confusion. You're not saying what they did was okay. You're releasing the poison of resentment from your own body. Zen often teaches that resentment is like holding a hot coal, hoping to throw it later. But you get burned first. The empty boat teaching helps you set down the coal not by pretending you didn't get bumped, but by removing the extra story that turns the bump into a life sentence. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes the boat is not empty. Sometimes someone did intend harm. Zen still helps because it keeps your mind clean. Clean mind doesn't mean weak. It means you see reality as it is, without extra projection. Then you can set boundaries calmly. You can choose distance. You can speak clearly. And then you can rest. Taking everything personally often leads to impulsive reactions and sleepless nights. Seeing clearly leads to wise action and deeper peace. A simple bedtime practice for this teaching might look like this. On an inhale, say, "Maybe it wasn't personal." On an exhale, say, "I released the story." Then return to the body. Feel the bed. Feel the breath. Feel the weight. If another memory comes, do it again. Each time you release personalization, you untie a knot in the chest, and untied knots sleep better. There is a quiet dignity in not making everything about you. It doesn't mean you don't matter. It means you are free. You are free to stop being dragged by other people's moods and misunderstandings. You are free to rest your nervous system. You are free to stop letting the mind put someone in the boat and then argue with them for hours in the dark. Zen says, if the boat is empty, don't shout at it. If the boat has a person, don't let your mind become their prisoner. Either way, come back to your own oar, your breath, your awareness, your kindness. That is where your peace lives. Tonight, as you lay down, you can practice this in one sentence. I don't need to take this personally to be wise. Say it softly. Let the body settle. Let the mind stop rehearsing. Let the lake become still again. And in that stillness, sleep can come quietly, naturally, because you are no longer rowing against shadows. The uncarved block, returning to simplicity when life feels too much. There are nights when your mind isn't spinning around one specific worry. It's spinning around everything. Your brain feels crowded. Your heart feels full. Your body feels like it's still carrying the day, even though the day is over. In those moments, you might think you need a complicated solution, more information, more planning, more effort. Zen often offers the opposite, simplicity. It teaches that when life feels too much, returning to what is basic can save you. Zen has an image for this: the uncarved block. The uncarved block is wood before it's shaped natural, plain, complete in its own way. Zen uses it as a symbol for the mind before it's overloaded with opinions, roles, and endless self-editing. The uncarved block is not less, it's actually freer. It hasn't been chopped into 1,000 demands. It's whole. At night, when you feel overwhelmed, Zen invites you to return to this wholeness, not by escaping life, but by releasing unnecessary complexity. In Buddhist teaching, suffering increases when we add layers. A situation happens, then the mind builds a story. The story builds a judgment. The judgment builds an identity. The identity builds fear. By the time you're in bed, you're not just dealing with life, you're dealing with life multiplied by 10. Zen practice is subtraction. It asks, what can be removed right now? Not removed forever, but removed for the night. Simplicity begins with the senses. Feel the bed supporting you. Hear the quiet of the room. Notice the temperature of the air. These are simple truths, like the uncarved block. They don't require analysis. They don't demand performance. When you rest attention in the senses, you stop feeding the mind's habit of building layers. The mind can't decorate the future as easily when you're fully feeling your breath. There is a Zen story about a student who felt overwhelmed by practice and life. He told his teacher, "My mind is too complicated. I can't find peace." The teacher handed him a bowl and said, "Wash this." The student was confused. "How does washing a bowl help?" The teacher replied, "Because in this moment, there is only bowl, water, hands, nothing extra." The student washed the bowl. For a few minutes, his mind stopped chasing. He felt quiet. The teacher said, "Peace is not something you add. It is what remains when you stop adding." That is the uncarved block teaching. It's not about becoming dull or passive. It's about stopping the mind's constant carving yourself into what you should be, carving life into what it must become. At night, that carving becomes painful. Zen suggests you set the knife down. How do you do this practically in bed? Start by choosing one simple anchor. The best anchor is the breath, because it's always here. Notice the inhale and exhale. Then reduce your focus even more. Feel only the exhale. Let it be slightly longer than the inhale. That's your first act of simplification. You are telling your system, we don't need to do everything. We only need to breathe. Next, simplify your mental language. Overwhelm often uses huge words. Everything, never, always, ruined, impossible. Zen brings you back to small, true words. Tired, here, breathing, safe enough, now. This shift matters. The nervous system relaxes when the mind stops shouting in extremes. Buddhism calls this right speech turned inward, kind and truthful inner language. Then simplify your relationship to time. If the mind is pulling you into tomorrow, gently bring it back to tonight. You can say, Tomorrow has its own time. Tonight is for resting. This is not avoidance. It is wise timing. Even in Buddhist ethics, timing matters. Skillful means choosing the right action at the right moment. At bedtime, the right action is often rest. The Buddha taught the middle way, balanced effort. Overwhelm comes from imbalance. Too much striving, too much stimulation, too much pressure, too much responsibility without nourishment. Zen doesn't solve your entire life in one night. It gives you a reset of the nervous system so you can meet life more wisely tomorrow. That reset begins with simplicity. Here's a gentle Zen practice for nights when life feels too much an uncarved block meditation. Feel your body as one whole shape. Don't scan for problems. Just feel weight. On the inhale, say inwardly, simple. On the exhale, say inwardly, enough. If thoughts interrupt, don't wrestle. Return to simple, enough. This is not a mantra to achieve enlightenment. It's a lullaby for the nervous system. It stops the mind from carving. Zen also teaches that emptiness is not nothingness. It's spaciousness. When you simplify, you create space. Space allows breath to deepen. Space allows emotion to move. Space allows your mind to unclench. Many people fear space because space feels like losing control. But Zen says, control is not peace. Peace is space. Space is where you can finally breathe. Now, let's talk about the roles you carry. Overwhelm often comes from carrying too many identities at once. Worker, parent, partner, child, helper, fixer, achiever. Zen is compassionate about roles, but it reminds you, you are not only your roles. Beneath roles, you are a living being. At night, you can set the roles down. Not forever, but for now. You can tell yourself, tonight I am just breathing. That is uncarved block mind. There is another Zen story. A monk was known for his calm. Someone asked him, "How are you always at peace?" The monk replied, "I don't carry 2 days at once. This is simplicity." Overwhelm often comes from carrying yesterday's regret and tomorrow's fear while trying to live today. Zen says, carry only this moment. That is enough weight. Buddhist teaching also encourages contentment. Contentment doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop tormenting yourself with endless dissatisfaction. At night, contentment might be, I did what I could today. Even if the day wasn't perfect, even if you feel behind, you can recognize effort. This soft recognition calms the mind. A mind that feels respected is less frantic. If your mind insists on listing tasks, you can offer it a container. Pick one small priority for tomorrow, write it down, then close the list. In Zen, closure matters. It tells the mind, we are finished for now. Without closure, the mind keeps carving. A simple note creates enough closure to rest. Simplicity also includes forgiving yourself for being overwhelmed. Many people judge themselves for having a crowded mind, but a crowded mind is often a sign of a crowded life. The Buddha taught compassion for suffering, not condemnation. So be kind. Say, "Of course I feel this way. It's been a lot." Then, return to breath. Compassion is simplification too, because it removes the extra layer of self-attack. As you drift toward sleep, let the night be your teacher. Night does not demand achievement. Night invites release. Night returns the world to quiet. Zen aligns with night. It returns the mind to quiet by removing what is unnecessary. If you want one final phrase to carry into sleep, let it be plain and strong. Nothing extra. Say it gently. Then let the breath continue. Let the body sink. Let the mind stop carving. You don't need to build a perfect self tonight. You can be natural. You can be simple. You can be the uncarved block, whole, unforced, already here. Right now is the gate. A bedtime practice for coming home again and again. Zen can sound poetic bells, mountains, lanterns, empty boats, but the deepest Zen is extremely practical. It always comes back to one thing: right now. Not because right now is always comfortable, but because right now is the only gate you can actually walk through. You cannot walk through yesterday. You cannot walk through tomorrow. You can only walk through this breath, this moment, this simple awareness. That's why Zen says, the present is the gate. At night, many people stand outside this gate without realizing it. They lie in bed, but their mind is elsewhere, rehearsing tomorrow, regretting yesterday, fantasizing about different outcomes, scanning for danger. The body is here, but the attention is not. Zen practice is simply returning attention to the body and breath until here and you match again. When they match, you feel a quiet kind of peace, not excitement, not fireworks, but the relief of coming home. There is a Zen story about a student who asked, "Where is the path?" The teacher tapped the ground and said, "Here." The student asked, "When?" The teacher said, "Now." The student got frustrated. "But I want a deeper answer." The teacher smiled. "If you miss here and now, you miss everything." This story can sound almost too direct, but at bedtime, it becomes a life-saving simplicity, because the mind that can return to here and now can rest. The Buddha taught mindfulness as a way of liberation. Mindfulness is not just paying attention. It is paying attention in a certain way, clearly, gently, without clinging. At night, you can turn mindfulness into a bedtime gate practice. The purpose is not to achieve sleep like a goal. The purpose is to stop fighting and start resting. When resting becomes real, sleep often follows. So let's make the practice clear and doable. You can think of it as walking through a gate again and again. Each time the mind wanders, you come back through the gate. Step 1. Arrive in the body. Feel the bed supporting you. Feel the weight of your body. Let your arms and legs be heavy. Unclench the jaw. Soften the forehead. If you can, relax your tongue. These tiny changes tell your nervous system that the battle is over. Step 2. Choose one anchor. Choose the breath at the nostrils, the rise and fall of the chest, or the feeling of the belly. Pick one and stay with it. If you keep switching anchors, the mind treats practice like another task. One anchor is enough. Step 3. Open the gate with the exhale. Let the exhale be slightly longer than the inhale. Not forced, just a little longer. The exhale is the body's release signal. It tells the system, we can downshift. If you're anxious, the exhale is especially powerful. Step 4. Use a simple phrase. On the inhale, say inwardly, here. On the exhale, say inwardly, now. Base clued, end quote. That's it. This phrase is not superstition. It's a pointer. It directs attention back to the gate. Now, when the mind wanders, because it will, Zen gives you a clear instruction. Return without judgment. The return is the practice. The wandering is not failure. The return is success. Every time you notice wandering, you are already awake enough to come back. That's the whole path at bedtime. There's a Zen story about a monk who complained, I keep losing focus. The master asked, how many times? The monk said, hundreds. The master replied, then you have returned hundreds of times. That is not failure. That is training. This is deeply encouraging, especially for people who judge themselves for restless nights. Zen changes the scorecard. It celebrates returning, not perfection. But what if the mind is stuck on something heavy: grief, shame, fear? Then the gate practice includes compassion. You can add a second phrase after here, now. For example, inhale, here. Exhale, now. Inhale, soft. Exhale, safe enough. Safe enough is important. Zen does not demand that life be perfectly safe before you can rest. It invites you to find what is safe enough in this moment. A bed, a breath, a roof, a quiet room. Your own awareness. This is not ignoring problems. It's refusing to panic about problems while you are trying to sleep. The Buddha taught that clinging leads to suffering. At bedtime, clinging can be subtle. Clinging to needing to sleep fast. Clinging to wanting the mind to be quiet. Clinging to needing tomorrow to go well. Zen invites you to let go of even these clings. If you cling to sleep, you push it away. If you allow rest, sleep can arrive naturally. And one starting 7th. So one of the kindest things you can do tonight is to stop demanding sleep as proof that you're okay. You are okay, even if sleep takes time. This is where the gate becomes a refuge. Every time you return to breath, you are telling yourself, I have a place to come back to. Many people feel lost in their own minds. Zen gives them a home, the present. It may not solve everything, but it keeps you from being swept away. If your mind keeps listing tasks, you can briefly acknowledge, then set them down. Zen is not anti-planning. It is anti-rumination. So you can say, noted, then return to here, now. If needed, write one line on a note and close it. Then return. This gives the mind closure. If your mind keeps replaying a conversation, practice the empty boat teaching. Maybe it wasn't personal. Then return. If your mind keeps creating fear, practice rope and snake. Is this a rope? Then return. If your mind keeps judging you, practice the 2 arrows. I won't add more. Then return. Notice how Zen teachings fit together like one woven cloth. They all lead back to the same gate, the present moment. That's why Zen is such a strong support for sleep. Sleep is a kind of surrender. You can't force surrender. You can only relax enough that surrender happens. There is also a quiet spiritual aspect here. In Buddhism, refuge is not only a concept, it's a felt experience. When you return to the present, you experience refuge in something deeper than thoughts. Awareness. Awareness is steady. Thoughts change. Feelings change. The body changes. But awareness can hold all of it. When you rest in awareness, even briefly, the mind becomes less afraid. And fear is what keeps you awake. So tonight, don't look for a perfect meditation. Look for a faithful return. Your whole practice can be this. Notice wandering. Return to breath. Soften the body. Repeat. That's the gate. If you want a closing line to guide your final minutes before sleep, let it be as simple as Zen itself. This breath is enough. Say it gently. Then let go of the words. Let the breath continue without you. Let the body become heavy. Let thoughts be distant. You don't need to reach the end of your worries tonight. You only need to walk through the gate of the present one more time, and then one more time, and then quietly, sleep may come like a soft door closing. The bamboo in the wind. Flexibility, boundaries, and peaceful rest. Some people can't sleep because they're afraid. Others can't sleep because they're hurt. And many can't sleep because they're stretched, pulled in too many directions, carrying too much for too long. When your life has required you to be strong, responsible, and available, the body can forget how to soften. The mind can forget how to stop. Zen offers an image that is both gentle and powerful. Bamboo in the wind. Bamboo is strong, but it doesn't fight the wind. It bends, it sways, it returns. It survives storms not by being rigid, but by being flexible. Zen uses bamboo to teach a kind of strength that many tired hearts need. Strength without hardness. And it also points to something people often misunderstand. Flexibility is not the same as having no boundaries. Bamboo bends, but it does not break. It has structure. It has roots. That is what boundaries are in Buddhism, the roots that allow you to bend without breaking. At night, sleeplessness can come from living without roots, saying yes too often, absorbing other people's moods, carrying guilt for needing rest, feeling responsible for everything. Zen teaches that peaceful rest requires wise boundaries. In Buddhist ethics, boundaries are not selfish. They are part of non-harming. When you exhaust yourself, you become more reactive, less patient, less kind. Rest is not indulgence. Rest is protection for you and for those around you. There's a Zen story about a monk who was always busy helping others. He carried water, fixed things, listened to everyone's problems. People praised him, but he began to look exhausted. One day his teacher said, "You help everyone, but who helps you?" The monk said, "I don't need help. I'm fine." The teacher took him outside and pointed at bamboo bending in the wind. "Look," the teacher said, "bamboo bends because it knows the wind is strong. You refuse to bend, so you will break." The monk didn't understand immediately. He thought bending meant weakness. But later he realized bending meant listening to reality. Zen and Buddhism do not glorify burnout. The Buddha taught a middle way balanced effort. Too much effort becomes strain. Too little becomes stagnation. Balanced effort includes rest. It includes silence. It includes saying no. This is deeply important at bedtime. If you never practice boundaries during the day, the mind tries to create them at night through insomnia. Insomnia becomes the body's forced boundary. It's the body saying, "Stop, enough." Zen invites you to create boundaries consciously so your body doesn't have to scream. So, how do you bring the bamboo teaching into your night? Start with a gentle question. Where have I been rigid today? Rigid could mean pushing through exhaustion, refusing to ask for help, trying to control outcomes, holding resentment, holding guilt. Rigidity creates tension, and tension is the enemy of sleep. Then ask, where can I bend? Bending could mean releasing one expectation, forgiving one imperfection, postponing one worry until tomorrow, letting someone else handle something, choosing a simpler standard for yourself. Bending begins with the body. At night, practice bamboo breathing. Inhale as if air is moving through a hollow stem, smooth and quiet. Exhale longer, as if the stem is releasing pressure. With each exhale, imagine bending gently, not snapping. Let your shoulders drop. Let your belly soften. Let your hands open. The body learns flexibility through softness. Now, boundaries. Many people think boundaries are harsh statements. But Buddhist boundaries can be gentle and clear. A boundary can be internal. I will not replay this conversation tonight. I will not solve tomorrow at midnight. I will not punish myself in bed. These are powerful boundaries because they protect the mind. You can repeat a simple sentence like a vow. Tonight, I rest. That is a boundary. Boundaries can also be relational. If you are always carrying other people's emotions, your mind stays activated. Bamboo teaching reminds you, you can care without absorbing. You can be compassionate without becoming the dumping ground for every storm. In Buddhist practice, compassion is paired with wisdom. Wisdom knows limits. Wisdom knows timing. Wisdom says, I will respond when I am resourced. That is not cold. It is sustainable compassion. There is a Zen story about two monks traveling. They came to a river and saw a woman who couldn't cross. One monk carried her across and set her down. They walked on. Hours later, the other monk was still upset. Why did you touch her? He asked. The first monk replied, I put her down at the river. Why are you still carrying her? This story is often taught about attachment, but it's also about boundaries. You can help, then put it down. Many people help, but keep carrying it into the night. Zen teaches, put it down. That is bamboo strength, flexible in action, clear in release. At bedtime, you can practice putting down intentionally. Choose one thing you carried today that is not yours to carry tonight. Maybe it's someone's disappointment, someone's mood, someone's opinion, a work problem you cannot solve until morning. Place it down in imagination, like setting a heavy bundle beside the bed. Then, return to breath. This is boundary practice. Buddhism also teaches non-attachment, and boundaries are a form of non-attachment. They are not rejection, they are clarity. You can love someone and still say no. You can work hard and still rest. You can care deeply and still protect your nervous system. Bamboo bends, but it is rooted. If you struggle with guilt when you set boundaries, Zen invites you to look closely at the guilt. Often, guilt is not truth, it's conditioning. It's a habit learned from roles or past expectations. I must always be available. The Buddha taught that freedom includes freeing the mind from unwholesome conditioning. If guilt appears when you rest, practice the two arrows. Rest is the first arrow's healing. Guilt is the second arrow. Put down the second arrow. Replace it with loving kindness. May I be free from inner harm. Here is a bedtime practice combining bamboo and boundaries. Feel your body supported by the bed. Inhale, I bend. Exhale, I release. Then say, tonight, I rest. If a thought tries to pull you back into duty, answer softly, not now. Return to breath. This practice trains the mind to respect boundaries. Zen also teaches that flexibility is not indecision. It is responsiveness. A rigid mind insists, it must be this way. A flexible mind asks, what is needed now? What is needed now? At bedtime, what is needed now is usually rest. Not more analysis. Not more striving. Just rest. There's also a deeper spiritual point. In Buddhism, true peace arises when we stop clinging to the self-image of being the one who holds everything together. That self-image is heavy. Bamboo teaching says, you don't have to hold everything. You can bend. You can be supported. You can be part of life, not the manager of life. This is humility. And humility is restful. If you want a closing phrase to carry into sleep, make it simple and rooted. Rooted. I can bend. Say it once. Let your shoulders drop. Let the exhale lengthen. Let the mind stop bracing. You are allowed to have boundaries. You are allowed to be flexible. You are allowed to rest. And like bamboo, you will rise again, not because you forced yourself, but because you stayed rooted in what matters: breath, awareness, compassion, and the wisdom to stop when it is time to stop. The mirror and the dust, clearing the mind without forcing it. Some nights, the mind feels like a mirror that can't reflect clearly, not because the mirror is broken, but because it's covered in dust. The dust is everything you've taken in screens, conversations, worries, news, expectations, the emotional weather of other people. By bedtime, your inner mirror can feel cloudy, and when it's cloudy, even small thoughts look big. Zen offers a compassionate way to relate to this. You don't need to smash the mirror to get clarity. You only need to wipe the dust gently. Zen often uses the mirror image to teach mindfulness. The mind, in its natural state, can reflect experience clearly, but when it is agitated, it distorts. And most people respond to distortion by pushing harder. I need to calm down. I need to stop thinking. I need to fix this. That effort can become more dust. Zen suggests the opposite. Stop forcing. Start clearing. Clearing is softer than controlling. It's like wiping a mirror with care. There's a Zen story about a student who said, "My mind is dirty." The teacher replied, "Then clean it." The student asked, "How?" The teacher said, "Not with anger, not with blame. Clean it the way you clean your face." The student understood. You don't scrub your face with hatred. You wash with gentleness. Zen is like that. It doesn't make you fight your mind. It teaches you how to care for your mind. Buddhism also teaches that the mind is shaped by what we feed it. If you feed it constant stimulation, it becomes restless. If you feed it constant comparison, it becomes insecure. If you feed it fear, it becomes vigilant. So wiping the dust includes two things: reducing what you take in and softening what you carry within. At bedtime, the first dust wipe is physical. Release the body. Unclench the jaw. Drop the shoulders. Relax the forehead. Let the belly soften. Your body is a mirror too. When the body is tight, the mind reflects tension. When the body softens, the mind becomes clearer. Zen begins here because it's immediate. The second dust wipe is breath. Make the exhale slightly longer than the inhale, like a slow cloth moving across glass. Each exhale wipes a little dust. You are not trying to breathe right. You are letting breath become a gentle cleaning motion. The nervous system understands this language. The third dust wipe is attention. Zen teaches you to choose a small field of attention and stay there. When attention is scattered, dust keeps swirling. When attention gathers, dust settles. Pick one anchor: the breath at the nostrils, the rise and fall of the chest, or the feeling of the bed supporting you. Then return to that anchor again and again. Returning is the wipe. The mind wanders, that's dust moving. You return wipe. A Zen teacher once said, "You don't stop dust from appearing. You just keep wiping." That's the whole practice. Many people get discouraged because dust keeps coming. Thoughts keep appearing. Zen says, thoughts are normal. Wiping is practice. There is a story of a monk who spent years sweeping temple floors. A visitor asked, "Why do you keep sweeping? The leaves fall again." The monk replied, "I sweep because my mind needs it." Sweeping was not only about the floor, it was about clarity. At night, your sweeping is breathing, returning, and releasing. The goal is not a forever clean mind. The goal is a mind clear enough to rest. Now, a big part of dust at bedtime is mental noise from the day. Screens are one of the biggest sources. If you watch intense content before sleep, your mind keeps replaying it. Zen would call that dust. You don't need to judge yourself for it. You can simply recognize cause and effect. What you take in becomes what you carry. This is basic Buddhist wisdom. So, if you want better sleep over time, the practice includes gentle discipline, fewer stimulating inputs, more calming ones. But tonight, we work with what's already here. If the mind is loud, don't fight it. Fighting is like wiping the mirror with sandpaper. It scratches. Instead, wipe with kindness. When a thought arises, label it softly, thinking. When a worry arises, worrying. When a memory arises, remembering. Then return to the anchor. No commentary, no judgment. This is the most dust-free response you can give. Zen also teaches letting be. Letting be is not laziness. It's an advanced form of trust. Trust that thoughts can pass without you chasing them. Trust that emotions can move without you controlling them. Trust that the nervous system can downshift when you stop panicking. Letting be is the hand that wipes the mirror gently instead of pounding it. There's a Zen story about a man who wanted to see his reflection in a pond. But the water was rippling. He kept slapping the surface to make it still. The ripples only increased. A teacher watching nearby said, "Stop hitting the water." The man asked, "Then how will it become still?" The teacher replied, "Wait." The man waited. The water settled. The reflection appeared. That's Zen. You don't create stillness by slapping your mind. You create stillness by stopping the slapping. The Buddha taught that a disciplined mind brings happiness. Discipline here doesn't mean harsh control. It means steady returning. Wiping the dust is discipline. It's the simple discipline of coming back to your anchor. Now, if you want a gentle mirror practice you can do right now, try this. Feel the breath. On the inhale, say clear. On the exhale, say clean. If a thought appears, label it. Then return to clear, clean. This is a soft rhythm. It trains the mind without pressure. You can also combine this with loving kindness to prevent self-attack. Many people make their mind dirtier by criticizing it. Why am I like this? That's extra dust. So add one sentence of kindness. It's been a long day. Of course, my mind is busy. May I be gentle with myself? These phrases are not excuses. They are realistic compassion. And realistic compassion clears the mirror faster than shame. Zen also reminds us that clarity is not an all-or-nothing state. A mirror can be slightly dusty and still reflect enough to see. You don't need perfect clarity to rest. You need enough clarity to stop spiraling, enough to feel supported, enough to breathe without fighting, enough to let the night do its quiet work. If you're still awake after practicing, that's okay. Keep wiping, not with frustration, but with patience. Every exhale is a wipe. Every return is a wipe. Every moment you stop feeding the story is a wipe. Over time, dust settles. The mind becomes less sharp, less demanding. The body sinks. Sleep often arrives when you stop trying to grab it. A final Zen reminder: the mirror is not the dust. Your awareness is not the noise. You are not the day's chaos. You are the capacity to see it. When you remember that, you relax. You stop thinking you must fix yourself to deserve rest. You simply wipe the dust and let clarity return naturally. If you want one closing phrase to carry you into sleep, keep it gentle. I wipe, I breathe, I rest. Then let the words go. Let the breath continue. Let the dust settle. Let the mirror reflect the simplest truth. You are already here, and that is enough. The last leaf, trusting release as the night turns quiet. There's a special kind of heaviness that shows up at the end of a long day or at the end of a long season. It's not just tiredness. It's the feeling of carrying too many unfinished things. Words you didn't say, choices you second guess, plans that didn't happen, hopes that got delayed. At night, the mind can hold those unfinished things like a clenched fist. Zen offers a final teaching that is simple, natural, and deeply comforting. The last leaf. Imagine a tree in late autumn. Most leaves have already fallen. The branches are lighter. The air is cooler. But one leaf still hangs on, stubbornly. The tree doesn't argue with it. The tree doesn't shame it. The tree simply stands. And when the wind comes soft or strong, the leaf eventually releases. This is Zen's way of saying, letting go is often not a dramatic decision. It's a quiet readiness. It's the moment you stop gripping and allow the wind of life to do its work. Buddhism teaches non-attachment, but non-attachment is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean you stop loving, stop caring, or stop trying. It means you stop clinging. You stop squeezing life into the shape you think it must be. You stop insisting that your timing is the only timing. When you practice non-attachment at bedtime, you're not erasing your responsibilities. You're simply releasing the grip so the heart can rest. The last leaf teaching is especially important for sleep because sleep itself is a kind of letting go. You cannot control your way into sleep. You can only relax into it. When you grip your thoughts, grip your plans, grip your worry, your nervous system stays activated. When you loosen, the system downshifts. Zen says, "Be like the tree. Let the wind help." There is a Zen story about a student who said, "I can't let go." The teacher asked, "What are you holding?" The student listed many things: fear, regret, anger, plans. The teacher said, "Open your hand." The student opened his hand. The teacher asked, "What did you lose?" The student said, "Nothing." The teacher smiled. "Then open your mind." The teaching is gentle but strong. Much of our clinging is not necessary. We hold because we think holding keeps us safe, but holding often keeps us tense. And tension is the enemy of peace. So how do you practice last leaf at night? Start with one question. What is my last leaf tonight? Not all leaves, just one. One worry, one regret, one pressure, one conversation, one thing your mind keeps returning to. Name it with a few words. Then, rather than analyzing it, feel what happens in the body when you hold it. Often you'll notice tightness in the jaw, chest, belly, or hands. That's the grip. The body reveals the clinging. Now, soften the grip physically. Open the hands. Relax the tongue. Let the shoulders drop. Then, lengthen the exhale slightly. Imagine the exhale as wind. With each exhale, imagine the leaf loosening. Not forced, not torn away, just loosening. You are teaching your nervous system the sensation of release. Zen is very compassionate about timing. Sometimes you're not ready to let go completely. That's okay. The last leaf teaching doesn't demand instant release. It invites small releases. You might say, "I can't let go forever, but I can let go for tonight." This is a powerful boundary. It gives you permission to rest without pretending the issue is solved. Buddhism is practical like this. It respects your real life while still protecting your peace. If your mind argues, "But what if I forget? What if I lose control?" Answer softly, "I will remember tomorrow." Then return to the breath. This is the lantern teaching again. Enough light for now. Enough release for now. Buddhism also teaches compassion as a foundation for letting go. Sometimes we cling because we're scared, not because we're stubborn. The mind fears uncertainty. So offer yourself kindness. Of course this is hard. Of course I'm holding on. May I feel safe enough to release. This is loving kindness turned into courage. When the heart feels safer, it lets go more easily. There's also a deep wisdom in the Buddha's teaching on impermanence. Everything changes. The leaf will fall. The season will turn. Your feelings will shift. Your life will evolve. Clinging often comes from forgetting impermanence, thinking we must hold tightly or things will fall apart. But things change whether we cling or not. Zen suggests, if change is inevitable, why suffer by gripping? Better to release and meet change with steadiness. Now, some clinging is about identity. We cling to being right, being good, being strong, being the one who holds it together. We cling to a story about ourselves. Zen asks, can you rest from the story tonight? The tree doesn't need a story to stand. It just stands. You don't need a story to breathe. You just breathe. This is already here in its final form. Release identity pressure and come back to bare presence. A simple way to practice this is to let your thoughts become background. Instead of listening to them like urgent announcements, hear them like distant radio. You don't have to turn the radio off. You just stop walking toward it. You return to the breath. You return to the weight of your body. You return to the quiet of the room. This is the tree standing while wind passes. Zen also teaches trust. Trust doesn't mean believing everything will go your way. Trust means believing you can meet life as it is. That trust is what allows release. When you trust yourself to handle tomorrow, you don't have to grip tomorrow tonight. When you trust that you can repair what needs repair, you don't have to punish yourself at midnight. Trust is what lets the leaf fall. So tonight, practice trust in a small way. Choose one leaf and let it loosen. You can even use a simple phrase with the breath. Inhale. I held this. Minus. 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 Exhale. I release it for now. Inhale. I am here. Exhale. That is enough. Repeat slowly. Let the words be gentle. Then let them go. The goal is not to hold phrases. The goal is to loosen. As the night turns quiet, you may notice moments of stillness between thoughts. Don't chase those moments. If you chase them, you tighten. Just notice them, like noticing a leaf drifting down. Let it be. Let it happen. Let the body sink deeper. And if sleep doesn't come quickly, still practice release. Rest is still valuable. Lying down with a softened grip is already healing. Zen sees this as success. Not the outcome, but the direction. Toward gentleness. Toward non-harming. Toward letting go. If you want one final line to carry into sleep, let it be simple, like the last leaf itself. I can let this fall. Say it once, then breathe. Let the wind of the exhale do its work. Let the tree of your body stand steady. Let the leaf of the day loosen. And when it's ready, let it go quietly into the dark, where rest becomes possible. Tonight, you don't have to carry the whole world into your sleep. Zen is not asking you to become perfect, fearless, or finished. It's simply inviting you to come home again and again to what is real. A breath, a body, a quiet moment that doesn't demand performance. When your mind becomes a lantern instead of a spotlight, You stop trying to light the entire future. When you see the rope instead of the snake, fear loses its grip. When you release the second arrow, pain becomes lighter. When you welcome emotions as guests, they stop taking over the house. And when you loosen your hold like the last leaf, you remember, letting go is not losing, it's resting. So as you close your eyes, let one thing be enough. One slow exhale, one softening in the shoulders, one gentle phrase, already here, already enough. If thoughts return, you don't need to fight them. You only need to return. That return is the practice. That return is peace. May your heart be safe tonight. May your mind be quiet enough. And may sleep come to you like a blessing, soft, steady, and kind.